Okay, hi everybody. Again, I'm Rich Stanley from Mechanical Engineering, and we're going to be talking about flipping the classroom. I've done it this term, I've done it a prior term 2 terms ago, which would be the winter of the spring of 2013. So in the traditional classroom, this is what I did beforehand really, is I lecture 50 to 75% of the time. And then maybe 25% I solve examples in the problem in the classroom. I never actually did any kind of interactive type work until just recently, but I did do interactive work. I have done interactive work in the past. And then you assign homework and then you give quizzes, so that's a standard model. However, as Terry mentioned, flipping a classroom is nothing that's uncommon. So we have the student reads the material and then everything else is the same. The instructor lectures, you have example problems that are solved in the classroom, and then homework's assigned and quizzes and tests are given. So the only difference is flipping just means that you tell the students to read stuff beforehand instead of to have them prepared for your classroom. And the problem with this right now is there's no mechanism to make sure that that the students actually read the material. And in most cases, the students don't read the material. So that's where the internet is actually enabling us to ensure that the students are reading the material before coming to the classroom. So the internet-based flipped classroom, in my case, we have 3 to 4 pre-lectures, and the students view these pre-lectures before class. And all I do is for about 20 minutes is review exactly what we went over in the pre-lectures, just a quick review. And then 80% of the time, all we do are solving problems in the class. We just sit around and solve problems in a team setting. And then I assign homework also, and I give quizzes, and I give tests. So the big difference now is we have pre-lectures, and these pre-lectures, you're going to see an example of one, are actually a 30-minute lecture that I would do on a board, but it's actually about a 5-minute long snippet that tells the students exactly what they have to know. So it saves me a half an hour of time in class to work just on problems.
So is it for every lecture or is it every now and then?
Every lecture. Every lecture. How to create these. This took me about a year to get it right. I tried all kinds of different methods. I tried tablets. I tried videotaping myself in my office, projecting on a whiteboard in my office at my house. I had a lot of trouble, and I found the method that works best for me is to use a combination of the LiveScribe pen and Camtasia. And I'm going to show you and hand you around what that LiveScribe pen is and the tablet that goes along with it. This is the pen. It's an electronic pen. It's about $100, $125. Yeah, and we have them available in Kettle. Also, Mechanical Engineering, I believe, is going to have one available. And we're going to talk about this later, but I'm going to have some groups that can come in and actually have sessions on how to use this. And what happens is a digital pen, and then everything I write, this is a special notebook, and it has a bunch of very infinite small little dots you can't see. So when you write, it records everything you write. It's really neat. It's really cool the way it works. But it suffers from some very big disadvantages. You can't erase. And everybody makes mistakes consistently. I don't think I've ever done one purely without a mistake. I mean, I'll have a cosine instead of a sine. I'll have a negative instead of a positive. I don't think I've done one perfectly yet. And you can't erase. You can't. And I've called and I found out you can't. The other issue I didn't write up here is you can't change colors. It's just one color. The color's green. That's probably going to change in the future. I Googled it and it looks like LiveScribe's trying to change that, so that'll make it a little more interesting to have different colors. But then what I do off of this is it's not a good enough interface. It has its own interface. It's uploaded to the Camtasia site. And that site is not very robust, and it closes a lot. And I was using that at first, and the students had trouble getting into it. And I really didn't like it because I couldn't do anything more with it. And also, this pen records, so I'd talk as I was recording on the pen. Well, the dog would bark. Happens all the time. Somebody would ring the doorbell. I'd cough. All kinds of things would happen, so I came up with a process. The first process is to record everything on the LiveScribe pen. And don't even worry about the audio. And don't worry, be very careful, pause a lot, because you can pause a lot on this. You can pause and re-go. So I'll only write for 1 minute at a time, and I'll pause. Sweat gets on this. If I go for 5 minutes, sweat gets on it. Sweat interferes with the dots, and it doesn't pick up the information. There are all kinds of little problems that happen. So if my hands start getting sweaty, I pause it, I calm down, I just watch a little TV or whatnot, and I go back and I go through it. Also, I have every problem worked out very clearly by hand first before I write it in this tablet. This process of just the writing itself can take an hour to an hour and a half just for one problem, just to get it right. You constantly see, if you look through this book, I've got X's all the way through. And believe me, those X's came along with other things that I said at the same time as I had that X, okay? Because I'm halfway through and I screwed it up. But it happens. And it's a learning curve. At first it took me about, I'd say 5 hours for a complete video, and now I can get videos done in about an hour, but it's taken me literally about 200, maybe 250 videos I've done total for Wiley and also for Kettering. So what I do now is I use this as the writing mechanism, and then what I do is I record this online with Camtasia, which records your screen. And Camtasia records just the video part, not the audio part. So I just let it, and it goes slowly. Okay, so this might be 20 minutes worth of work. I want my videos to be 7 minutes. So it might be 20 minutes worth of work, and it takes 20 minutes. I might pause for 15 seconds when I'm doing something here. That comes in the editing part. So now I get all the video recorded in Camtasia. And Camtasia is very nice, very, very user-friendly, and also that's something that can help the faculty learn how to use. What I want to do is hand this around. You can look at the pen, make sure I get it back, and also look at the tablet and just kind of look and see what it looks like. So then I have earphones, a high-quality USB microphone. I learned that you don't use anything low quality, and I have an expense account with Wiley, so I get high-quality stuff anyway, so it doesn't matter. So they bought me some really cool microphones, a microphone type thing, and a nice headset. USB, don't use the audio input. The USB works very well, very nice. And then what I have to do first before I do that is I go into Camtasia, and Camtasia is an editing software, and I can also speed up and slow down as needed. And that itself takes a few months to get comfortable with. And then I get the video to look exactly the way I want it to look, the exact speed, exactly the way I want it to look. And then, after all of that, I have to go through and make dubbing issues. So if I have a cosine instead of a sine, for instance, or if I should have a negative sign, or maybe the circle didn't look just like a circle, a lot of times that pen does not record. It's state-of-the-art, but it's not perfect. So what I have to go in there is I have to use Camtasia and the tools to edit and actually fade in. So what I do is I white out areas that don't work, and I fade the information in such that it looks like it's natural writing. Because I want it to look like I'm naturally writing, but sometimes you'll see something fade in. When it fades in, that's something where I screwed up, actually. And then I fade it in. Or sometimes the pen doesn't pick something up. It's frustrating. I'll write something down, it's right on the piece of paper, and the pen doesn't pick it up. It just happens. It's gotten better, though. That's the highest. The earlier pens weren't as good. This pen's pretty good, and I think they're getting better and better. And also another thing is you have to make sure you have a lot of ink refills. If your the ink's cheap, I throw it out. If it starts getting bad, I throw the ink out right away, put a new ink in. I don't worry about it. It's about $1 per little ink packet. So the stuff is pretty inexpensive. And again, up to 5 hours for a 5-minute video. Now that's old. That's for somebody starting with this. But rarely does it take me more than an hour and a half for a video now. But I'm an expert at this stuff. And the process is so intense is that I intend to see if I can patent the process. So one thing I'm going to do, I'm offering this process itself. This isn't the only way to do it, but I think it's a nice way. The students seem to like it and they agree with it. And if I do patent the process, I'm going to get a provincial patent, and then everybody at Kettering can use my process for free. And I'm not going to charge, obviously everybody can, I'm going to share it with everybody. But I don't want anybody being at Kettering learning this process and then going outside and using a year of my work and then teaching somebody else how to do it. So I may be patenting it, but it's available to everybody at Kennedy. All Kettering faculty can learn from me in workshops. And we'll have workshops, I think in the winter, I plan on having a few workshops. And I'm hoping to get some faculty in there. And we'll actually do it, and I'll show you these small little bugs. I'm getting a little bit too much into this, but you've got to understand, these small little bugs that I talk about may have taken me 3 weeks to figure out because of the complexity of this kind of stuff. Nobody's figured out how to do what I've done. This is brand new. But it's very tedious. But if you know what to do, it's not that bad. But finding it is just a pain. But once I figured it out, it works pretty well. So that's the technology part. So the key points or advantage here is the theory is given via the pre-lectures, and these are 5 to 7 minutes long. There's a website called lynda.com that does videos for computers, and I got the idea from here to make them from that website because they have every video 5 minutes long or shorter, 6 minutes long or shorter. If you see a 30-minute video, you get scared. So if I have any videos more than 5 minutes, I split it up into 2 videos. For some reason, students don't have problems with 5-minute videos at a time, 2 5-minute videos, but 1 10-minute video is too much. It's the same stuff. It's just 2 separate videos, but it's just I don't know what, a psychological type thing. And I've organized material into course learning objectives instead of chapters. So I have course learning objectives as part of ABET. So your course learning objectives might be kinematics of particles, kinematics of rigid bodies, etc. Those are what the class is actually organized in, and the flipped class is organized in that fashion. And all the pre-lectures always have a sample example, a very simple sample example. Very simple, very basic. But so I'll show you theory. The theory's taken care of. They've seen the theory, a very, very simple example, and that's it. And then when I'm in the class, I spend almost all the class time in just interactive problem solving. And it's wonderful, and it's fun. I mean, teaching now is not teaching anymore. It's coaching. Because they already have the material. I review the material very quickly. I ask if there are any questions. And then the students work in teams. I put problems up on the board. They do the problems. I just help them solve the problems. It's great, and it's fun. You know, I was really getting tired of being on the board for an hour and a half and 2 hours and having students fall asleep on me. It's just not, it's not fulfilling. But seeing the students work together, and for some reason, I think it makes sense. This stuff is so simple to me. I've been doing this for 30 years. What's very, very simple to me is not simple to a student. So I can't explain things sometimes to students the way students can explain things to students. So the interactive approach is great because I see the students saying, no, do this, this, and this. To me, that's so obvious. But to other students, it's not. And the obvious now comes out in the group setting. And that works very, very well.
What happens if they don't read or they don't see that?
You know, we're getting to that. So we're getting there. Actually, we're right here. So the pre-lectures are viewed before class. I have a stick-carrot approach. Okay. Now the stick approach are 2, and by the way, I flipped this, and I flipped it back. Pardon the pun. So I gave pre-lecture quizzes. So if they view the lecture, they're Blackboard quizzes I developed very simply, very simple. If they looked at the video, they passed the quiz. And I found that was okay, but I had a feeling some students were probably just printing out a screenshot and then just looking at what was, they really weren't looking at the video. I wasn't sure if they were or not. And so I said, well, why don't I do this instead? I'll have them rewrite the entire voiceover and have that as a deliverable at the beginning of class. So at the beginning of class, they come in. I'm on Blackboard already, and as they come in, I just mark in that they did the pre-video. And they actually had them. What's cool about it too is they have it already printed out, and they use that to help them solve problems in the classroom. So that's the stick part. What I just found out just today is the students really do prefer the quiz. So, and then I got last week, they like writing it out. So it's kind of going back and forth. We're going to see which one. I think that's kind of instructor decision on what to do, on whether they actually do a quiz or they actually have to write it out. The reason I like the handwriting is they actually, for some reason, when you write something down, I think something comes up here a little more than just viewing it. And that's the reason I want them to write it down. Some students thought it was futile. That's going to be played back and forth. We're going to decide how that works as we go on. And then again, the process is I review the problems, and now here's the carrot. what I do is I pose 4 or 5 problems on the board, 3 or 4 problems on the board. Easy to more complex. Students work in groups. When you get it right, I come around and help and coach. When they get it right, they get to go home. So the students that get it, they get a half hour of free time. And then I get one-on-one with the students who are struggling. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I get the students that are, and then I get students working, so a lot of times I'll have one team of 2 or 3, and they just work together in teams. I don't set teams up, they just set themselves up. But we will get one team, and you see the other team, no, you're missing that one. No, that's a negative sign. No, it's supposed to be a cosine. So teams will help other teams, but sometimes a team will just want to go, and they get out 20 minutes early. That's the carrot. So that's the thing, is that really gets them really wanting to see the pre-lectures because they're prepared, and then they get out of class early. So the 20 minutes they spent with the pre-lectures, they absorb material better. I know by the time they've left the class that they can solve a problem that's similar to what I'm going to be giving on an examination. So that's how I do and that's been evolution, by the way. That evolved back and forth by trial and error. And to me, this is something I liked, and students liked it too. And let's, I've got to go off here. Let me look at a sample pre-lecture. Okay, now, I just did this brand new. This is the way that my text, this is my Wiley product that I'm going to be using, that I'm going to be developing. The product is going to be divided by course learning objectives. My students haven't used this a lot yet, but we have course learning objective, for instance here, 1, 2 through 8. These are really chapters. And now under this chapter, we have different sections. Here's CLO 1.1. And under this CLO 1.1, which is 1D kinematics, these are different types. And now I go into this type, and now here are all my tools. It's kind of like an iPad or an iTunes. And now here I can click and go into a pre-lecture. The problem with this here is it's not going to load. Oh, it loads correctly. Good. I'm in Chrome. It's loading in Chrome.
In this tutorial, we are going to discuss rectilinear kinematics in a special case such that acceleration is constant. Recall that rectilinear kinematics is one-dimensional kinematics.
Can you hear that, Ken?
We know that acceleration is dv over dt, and as stated in the introduction, the acceleration is constant throughout this video. So if we separate our variables, we get ADT equals dv, integrate both sides, the limits on dt are 0 to time t, and limits on velocity are initial velocity v naught to v. Taking this out of the integral, we get at equals v minus v naught, or v equals v naught plus a.
Okay, and so the student looks at this and says, okay, I want to go ahead on this, and let me see if I can see.
Now velocity is ds over dt.
You can forward fast, which is neat.
We get a times s
You can
minus
pause,
s naught
rewind, back and forth.
equals
Students love it.
1/2
So I say, I already know that stuff.
times d squared minus
One of the changes I'm going to make to this, it just came out in our meeting yesterday, is I'm going to have 3 or 4 different markers. So students can go right to the example problem, and they can go, and the theory doesn't have to be there if they want to go right to an example problem. Either that or they can just rewind. So the students really like the rewinding and fast forward. And now we have an example. So you kind of get an idea of what it looks like. And all the colors mean something. All the light blue. So let's go back here.
position f.
Notice on the left-hand side for this, in this case, and not all of them, but in this case, I have a part of the text on the left. And on the right-hand side, I'm going to explain this with my voice. And there's something about the voice that helps the students understand this. So it takes care of the people that want to read, they can read. But a lot of students want to actually, the voice is an added value, and students have already verified that it is. So that's just an example of what these look like. Now this video itself right there took me about 2.5 hours. And the whole video is what? I think it's about 2.5 minutes long. So they take a while, but after you get the hang of it, it's not all that bad. And let me go back into where we were. Okay, so I surveyed the students. All I've done is something qualitative, which is survey. I don't have any quantitative results yet. I will after this term, because I have a term where we didn't use the pre-lectures. And now I'm going to have a term where we're going to use the pre-lectures, and then we're going to actually compare final exam scores. But right now, this is what the students think. They like the method. 86% of the students in this anonymous survey, and we got 72% of the students actually completed the survey, so it's pretty good turnout. It's representative. And 86% of the students liked the concept. And 80% liked the pre-lectures. So, I mean, I'm getting really good numbers. And students are honest, trust me. I've had lots of things I've tried in class, and they've been honest, they don't like it. So I'm pretty confident this stuff is okay. They love, 90%, roughly 89%, they love being able to get out of class early. That doesn't mean they don't, it doesn't mean you don't learn, why stay in class if you already know stuff? If you really think about it, why are we there? They understand it, they know it, the whole team knows it, so not just one person that happens to be especially great in this topic, they have to help the rest of the team before they can leave. So they become teachers, which is great. They learn it better because they explain it to their fellow students. And they like them for pre-test study tools. So you can go back and look at the pre-lectures if you're stuck on something and you say, oh, okay, that's what I missed. They hear my voice. There's something about the voice. They hear my voice talking. And 83% feel the pre-lectures give them a deeper understanding of the material. Again, this is qualitative. I don't have any quantitative results. I'm expecting, who's in my class this term? You better do well. I'm expecting all hundreds on my final. My final is separated into course learning objectives. There are 16 course learning objectives. Every final is the same in nature. I provide cribs. I've been doing it all for about 7 or 8 years. And so there are 16 questions. Each question is a course learning objective. So I can actually map a question to a question and see if there's improvement. So I can actually look at each learning objective and see if I have an improvement in the success rate. And I'll make the final just as difficult as the other finals. So I'm not going to cheat. I'll make sure. And here's some student comments. These are rather wordy, but I think it's important. The pre-lecture videos were very helpful to me. Able to go back and forth and watch the videos if I didn't understand the stuff. And later, if I forgot something, they were helpful. I really appreciate this style of learning. Helps me to start thinking about the material before I get to class. I have to go back home and essentially reteach myself after lectures, etc. Pre-lectures work really great. They often help out with the homework assignments, etc. Find it beneficial. And keep up the great work, Coach. And I had to make sure that was there. I like that one. So, little smiley face. And they call me Coach. That's my nickname. Future considerations. Exam scores will be compared from 2 terms ago to this term. And I'm going to actually look quantitatively, have I actually increased the learning? Have the students actually learn more and show me that they can actually do more, and this is actually effective, not just that they like it, but they actually do better in the material. I'll give you an example on what's happening with pre-lectures. I was out for a week with my back this term, a week. That's 4 hours. I'm ahead in class. Now think about that. I lost a week, and I'm ahead in class. And I'm ahead in class because of the pre-lectures. You get so much more time to interact with the students. I've actually got extra time now, even though I was out. Don't dock me, Robert, please.
Just expect more material from you then.
That's what's going to happen. That's exactly what's going to happen. I'm going to be able to challenge them more. I'll get to do cool things like planetary gears that I can't do that I'd like to be doing. I'd like maybe go more into oblique impact, which I have a little trouble getting into. Maybe even get into some 3D stuff. I don't know. Maybe vibrations. But it's enabling me now I can cover more and maybe increase the course learning objectives because I'm way ahead of the game now. And it's all over this methodology. And by the way, this is not the only way of doing it. The LiveScribe pen is not the only way of doing it. There may be other ways of doing the flipped classroom. This is the general way, but I find this is a very effective method. And the beauty is, when they're done, they're done. Once I do these lectures, it's over. Okay, I sweat. I yell at the dog. It doesn't matter. I'm done. They're up there. They're up there for good. So it's a one-time deal. And once they're done, I'm set to go. There are 2 papers, actually. We're going to have one in New Orleans. I hate that I have to go to New Orleans, but I'm going there for the zone conference. And then there's going to be another paper that we're going to publish also in Indianapolis in June. So we have 2 papers. One's more qualitative, and one's going to be more on the improvements and quantitative of the 2 papers. So they're going to be similar but different. And that's all. So I'm open. So we're all set. Yes, Mo?
Rich, you've taught these courses before. How do you get some data on student understanding?
That's what I'm going to be getting this term to compare.
Like your success, which one
Yeah.
is?
Yeah, I do that for ABET anyway. So I already have data for ABET. I do it regularly based on final exams. So all I do is I look at the final exam, course learning objective, or CLO, course learning objective, and I'll just compare those. So I already have past data, a ton of it. And now I have present data, and I can compare it, not just one term, I can compare multiple terms. Yes, Diane?
The students who didn't like it, did they say why they didn't like it? Is it only because it's not?
I got no negative comments.
So,
I sent Terry the raw comments. There was nothing negative.
so the students who said they didn't like it, they didn't provide any explanation on your survey?
Yeah, you're going to get naysayers. Yeah, they maybe didn't like me. I don't know. I really haven't had any negative, and I don't want to say like this is the best thing in the world, but I really haven't. I would tell you I really haven't. I've had improvement suggestions, which is great. Lots of suggestions for improvement and how to deliver them. What I did, for instance, here's a good example: is I started out essentially completely going over the pre-lecture all over again, and students were like, "Come on, why are we even doing this? This is ridiculous. It's a waste of our time." So then I didn't do it at all, and they said, no, because you got to at least review. So I kind of went back and forth and honed in to now where it's a 15 to 20 minute review. And I'm not re-lecturing, but it replaces a 1 hour lecture. So I save 30 to 40 minutes per class, and that time is interactive problem solving to help the students solve problems. And that's what we're here for, students solving problems. And also I get to do other neat stuff too in class that I really wouldn't be able to do and have time for. So it's a time saver, and also it's really nice. We're thinking about having, for instance, some kind of an engineering math course of some sort, in the future or something like that. But it'd be neat to have pre-lectures available throughout the entire time the students are at Kettering. So when they're in thermal and they have to do something with the chain rule and they forgot, they can go back in these pre-lectures of maybe 40 or 50 pre-lectures and go back in the chain rule and review it. Instead of looking around trying to find a text, it'll all be there and available possibly maybe through Kettle, something like that. So there are a lot of opportunities for this. And again, the training sessions, I would say for faculty are going to take a good half a day, and that's just to get you started. And then you're going to be calling me here and there with questions. I digress a lot on that question. I think in the winter I can do it. Yeah. One.
The classroom activities a little bit?
The classroom activities, well, I like to do, I'm very animated, so I like to be able to do animated stuff like talking about mass moment inertia, and I take a yardstick and I look at the different ways of the orientation of the yardstick. But I have a little more time to do some more animated stuff, that type of stuff. And also really in the classroom a lot is the interaction with the students. In fact, one of the things I want to do is video the interaction with the students and actually have that posted. And I talked to the video department on doing that. Yeah, so I actually want to get that done. Probably next term. I may be teaching dynamics next term. I'm not sure. But it's almost to me, when I watch that happen and I see this, it's really neat because you see the students engaged. They want to get out of class. So they have this, common goal, but it's also learning. And then you don't always get the same student getting struggling and getting stuck. You'll get a bunch of them, and they say, oh, you missed a negative, and they're just working with each other. It's great. And they say, hey, coach, I need help. And I'll look at, no, cosine, sine, sine, cosine, and yell at them, call them. Yeah. But it's just really, really cool and neat watching them interact with each other that way, and I get that. So that's really, the class is not a class anymore. It's like a workshop that I would go for software, learning software or something like that. You're in a workshop environment where the students are working on classes. Now, by the way, another thing I do in class is I have students make up problems. So I say, okay, we have a football being kicked. What angle? Okay, that's the angle. Okay, what's the initial velocity? Okay, how far? Okay, 3 meter high post. What are we looking for? Final velocity over the post. Okay, cool. Okay, go. So I let them make their own problems up. And then I get agreement by 2 teams that their answers are correct. And if I get agreement by 2 teams that answers are correct, then we say, okay, we have agreement. 2 teams, not 2 people, 2 teams. The whole team, both teams agree. I take a real quick check. Okay, that one's okay. And by the end of the class, in almost every case, everybody's out by the end of the class. But normally I'm in class all the way until the end, because I might have one group that needs a little extra help, and that's fine. They get one-on-one with me.
Did you try any drawing tablets?
I hated them. Yeah.
What was the challenge?
The dexterity, I just can't get it right. This I'm just writing just like I normally have been writing for my entire life. Now maybe somebody that went through the electronic age, that actually has been working on these tablets and been doing it for years and years and years, might choose that because you have more options. You can do colors and all that kind of stuff. With this you can't. I found this for me personally is the best, and I get the best quality. And by the way, this is adopted by Wiley. John Wiley and Sons is using this in a lot of their textbooks. And a compliment I got yesterday is the reason that their textbook did not lose market value is because of these videos. Because the textbook now is just a textbook, and now people are looking for more. So they found that the more they got was through the voiceovers, because that helps the students learn the material more deeply. Yes, Pete?
In the class exercise, you mentioned you have teams.
Uh-huh.
And the teams self-select, right?
Yeah.
Have you considered maybe perhaps leaving that random?
Well, we could. And that's probably something I'll try. I'm always willing to try different things because you asked me.
Yeah, the reason I say that is sometimes when I was a student, I wanted to graduate someone who really is a lot smarter than me, and I just live off of them.
Yeah. Well, Pete, because you asked me to do it, then I have to do it. So I'll try it next term. That'll be, okay, repeating the question. The question is, are the teams self-selected or do I select them? Right now they're self-selected, but Pete just ordered me to, to actually have a random type thing. So that's something I'll try doing. Thanks, Pete.
I noticed that you had your textbook embedded into your lecture notes, obviously. Is there copyright issues?
No, because I'm using Merriam. I'm using Merriam.
Okay.
I'm using the text, so no, they don't have a problem at all. They love it that I'm doing it.
Okay, so you require the textbook be bought with the course separately?
Yeah, but I use Wiley Plus also for automatic grading of homework. So that's another reason I use Wiley Plus, which is through Merriam. So my publisher doesn't have a problem at all. If you're not using the text, definitely you'd have a copyright problem. So you can't just copy out of a text. But this is the text that I'm actually using for the course. So that's not an issue. So that's something we have to think of if we end up changing text, down the road. Then the ones that have a snapshot, we're not going to be able to use those without permission. Yes, Mark?
Have you thought about, I noticed you said your 2 sticks, the quizzes or the handwritten notes.
Yes.
Have you thought about varying them, doing some for some subject matter? And
Well, that's
maybe
kind of
quizzes, maybe quizzes work better for one of the CLOs and the notes work better for another, or maybe third week the quiz works better than the handwritten notes.
I'm actually...
Should it be 100% one way or the other?
No. I mean, that's what I've done this term is I've gone back and forth, and I found out they like the quizzes better, but then they like the handwriting and they like the quizzes. So I'm kind of trying, and that might be an issue. It might be the subject matter. Some subject matter is better. I really think they should be writing these notes down. I think just watching something, it's kind of like watching PowerPoint when you're in a classroom. I always had in a classroom, I had to write things down to have it sink in. So I like the writing part. But I just got, just this morning, the students said they thought there wasn't a lot of added value to that. So I got to play around with it a bit, back and forth. And again, it's a continuous improvement type thing. I'm always looking for student input to get the best out of the method.
It could be, different parts of the term are more rushed than others.
Yeah.
Or more packed. Sometimes that's.
It all depends. It all depends. And I'm open to suggestions and orders from Pete. So. Anything else? Okay, thank you.